What?
What's up? Hello, everyone. Shoot, I think we might have missed that. Alyssa's like laughing now because of Corey making us miss seeing the live stream is going on. So, wow, what a crazy episode. This isn't an episode that you see, like the first tribal council that a tribe goes to. I'm like, what the heck? It's something you see, maybe right after the merge. And CBS, they done goofed and ruined everyone's fantasy teams and everything with this episode. First, well, it is crazy. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Corey.
I'm gay.
And I'm still Alyssa. And these two are killing me. We were supposed to start podcasting 20 minutes ago, and these people are making me miss my homework time so that they can eat their stupid food or something.
Sorry, Alyssa.
Just don't do your homework and you won't have that problem.
We are talking about Survivor.
Guys, do your homework. Anyways, Corey is guest starring this week because he's friends with Rachel and she thinks that he's smart and knows Survivor stuff. So we'll see whether or not she's right.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yay!
This is a test run for Corey.
Oh, yeah. I know my stuff. I know that Ken is the hottest this season. I know that Adam is my boy. And I know that Ken and David are final two. Just like JT and Fishback, they are the Ty and Caleb of the season. They're making it to the end. And Ken is going to win because he's Ken.
Corey, that was not on the agenda.
Caleb as the metaphor is not a good thing. Because that means that Ken's being medevaced and Dave will shoot himself in the foot. So rethink your metaphors, my friend.
Oh, okay, so I guess we'll start in our chronological order with David making fire. Like, we see that before the opening credits, and it's like, yes, David, we see this sort of arc playing out. And I don't know, I sort of related it to Alicia from Brain Brawn Beauty 2 when she was like on the outs of the tribe, the skinniest girl on Brawn tribe, and then she makes fire after a long ass time.
I just think that the whole like the nerd makes the tribe's fire thing so much that I feel like some of it must be staged somehow. Because there's no way that like everyone who's on the outs with the tribe is just so happens to be the one who's like best equipped to make them fire. So I'm a little.
They are the most motivated to do something like that because they're on the chopping block. So, I mean, instead of just chilling out all day, like taking naps, you kind of are forced to contribute in hopes that you're not going to be next. Because if people see you add value, they might, not want to kick you out.
Yeah, I sort of thought, like, for making the fire sort of redeem David a little bit, even though, like, right after that we see Paul and Chris both still saying that David's the weakest and Cece's, like, not cool and they want them both to go home next, but no mention of Ken, so I feel like Ken sort of might be, like, in the middle area of this tribe right now, but I don't know. David says he's more of a Cochran than an Ozzy, which was really interesting. And Cochran was mentioned twice in this episode, first by David and then second by Will later, which we can talk about. And then I guess we sort of see how the first vote, like this episode, it's either you keep the annoying person or you keep the strong person, or you vote out the annoying or vote out the strong. So for episode 1, we saw they voted out the annoying person. Episode 2, we saw they voted out the strong person, which was really interesting.
Well, I feel like part of the thing where you said Ken was in the middle, I would say that he's on like the minority alliance, but his usefulness on the tribe right now outweighs their need to get rid of people on the minority alliance, just because like octopus and stuff like that. And it's like, you're not going to vote out the person who brings you food unless you have someone else who will bring you food as well. Biting the hand that feeds you is not a good thing.
Yep, if you show that you've got usefulness on the tribe, that's something that will entice people to keep you on longer. So, yeah.
But because you have to balance being useful with being a threat, just because people don't want threats, and it becomes really complicated in the post-merge game if people have begun to see you as a threat in the pre-merge.
Yeah, definitely. So, also, we see more of David this episode. We didn't see much from the Gen X tribe because they didn't go to Tribal, which sort of screwed us all over because CBS posted a, like, preview video saying, like, what Paul or Chris or someone contemplates before going to Tribal. So I basically stacked all of my fantasy things to make Gen X be the ones going to Tribal, which sort of messes up everything, but it's all good. This was a great episode. So David finding an idol, I was like, oh, heck yes. You know, he has a great alibi saying, I'm going to go find rocks to go make, you know, sit around the fire with. And then he goes and looks for the idol while he's getting rocks. So it's, like, not suspicious as he was last time, just going straight up looking for the idol.
Yeah, I feel like the problem with people who go to look for their idols generally is that they never really have a legitimate reason to be out. And it's like, if they do, like, choose a reason, it's something stupid like, I'm going to get water. And it's like, everyone knows that it doesn't take you that long to get water. Come on, my friends.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting that now idols are hidden in plain sight. So David found this idol in a marked coconut.
I thought that the funniest part of this was the fact that David, the weakest person, had to, like, the struggle in the idol for him was not, like, finding the actual idol, but opening it.
So, yeah, it was sort of funny. On Reddit, we saw that there's, like, a Yao Man theory about, like, the Fiji coconut, sort of. From what I remember, it was like, you know, David, he can't even break things with a stick. You know, how's he supposed to break a coconut? And, you know, they didn't just tape that coconut closed. He had to, like, use a use a knife or something. So basically they were like, Yao Man, when he was on Fiji, like, planted the, like, idol in the coconut, and, like, now, like, 5 to 10 years later or whatever, it's come to go in this Fiji land. So it's really funny, but, like, sort of troll. But I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was funny too.
Yeah, so I mean, go David. He, like, mad dashes into the forest when he finds it, which was really funny because this skinny-ass dude is, like, running around. And then he says a quote of, like, this is why we come and play Survivor. And I was like, okay, you know, David might be a little socially awkward, but he really knows his game and he's really here to play. And I mean, like, this arc saying how, even Zeke said it this time too, he was like, you know, I never thought this would happen to me, you know, never making fire and finding idols. And now he's sort of becoming more confident. So I'm like, yes, go David.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it's interesting because I wasn't sure whether or not there would be idols this season just because they had the legacy advantage. And I was like, I think it would be interesting if, like, there was nothing special in play until, like, literally the very end of the game. That's okay.
No, yeah, I'm, like, I feel like we can talk about when we talk about Ken later, but the idol can help David and maybe Ken and Cece, if they're still together, like, get some footage in the game.
I thought it was interesting because my friend and I were watching together, and she was, like, on Twitter as it was happening, and someone was, like, throwing serious shade at Dave. An idol will save you through one vote, but an alliance will save you through the whole game. And I was like, I feel like that person lacks fundamental understanding of the game of Survivor, because if your alliance is saving your ass the entire game, then why the hell are you still on their alliance?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like that tweet. That's just, like, I don't know. It doesn't, you need both, I feel like, in order to be successful at the game.
Yeah, you're not going to win Survivor without having, like, at least a fairly tight alliance that can make it far. Because if you're looking at, like, Gen X right now, I have a feeling that that alliance that, like, Paul is leading isn't really going to make it anywhere because of the fact that they don't seem to be too tight, and he's the self-proclaimed leader, which has never really worked out in this show. So I think David and Ken, and with Cece too, even though they're in that minority, they have a chance to work with the people in that majority alliance to turn on Paul or just make any sort of big move at this point. So honestly, I don't think they're in a bad position.
Like, honestly, it's better to have an alliance of people who are more loyal to each other than a larger alliance of people who like each other. Just because that's the kind of alliance that's so easy to drive a wedge into, like Corey was saying, and it would be so easy to convince them to like turn on Paul because almost be told that they're like following someone in an alliance.
Yeah, I feel that. So yeah, I think I was gonna mention stuff like that also when we talk about like the Ken and David alliance after we do the showmance and this cat fight. So I guess I'll bring that up then. But basically, so moving on to this freaking showmance. Oh my god, it is so cringy.
It's
So
really
my friend
bad.
and I, when we were watching, we were talking about like survivor romances that have worked out in the long term. 3,
Ooh.
and then we were like done, and all of those people were from like seasons teens pretty much. And so we were like, survivor relationships don't really work, but also Jay was like, they never work, and I was like, that, because there are 2 people out there who got married because they met on Survivor.
Yeah, I think Jay says it like really well. He's like, Figgy and Taylor are freaking stupid. You know, no couple on Survivor lasts. And then I really felt
Which
like,
is not true. That's not true.
I really felt like this sort of stigma against like power couples sort of ended with Rob and Amber because now everyone's wary. You know, you don't want to have 2 people super, super close. But then it's also like you can have a power couple with 2 males or 2 females also, but it doesn't have that kind of same stigma as a male-female, like, power couple relationship kind of thing.
Well, I think the big difference
Yeah.
is like, in a power couple, they are 100% going to vote together. Whereas even in like a super tight like duo, they won't necessarily vote together. So like if you looked at it in token chains with JT and Fishback, Fishback turned and voted out Coach, but JT stayed loyal to him. So they didn't vote together, and that, I mean, obviously had a big impact in a Final 5 situation when every vote has huge sway. So, I mean, just a showmance is so much worse than any sort of tight alliance that you have to end that as soon as you can.
I feel like part of it is like with romantic relationships, like there's such an emphasis on fidelity to each other, and I feel like in the game of Survivor, fidelity to each other, always voting together, which is like kind of the source of the problem that Corey was describing.
Yeah, and like we saw in the episode that they were saying, you know, let's move to LA together, and Taylor says like Spiggy is super rad, and I'm like, oh, this is so cringy. You know, you all are in a game. You need to get your head focused. You know, you were playing Survivor and you were lusting after each other in like 5 days, and then you see them making out, and it's like you guys have not brushed your teeth. And even Michaela has a great confessional. Like all of her confessionals are on point, straight savage, being calling out everyone. I'm like, yes, her confessionals are amazing. And like just making out after not having any hygiene, it's like, I don't know, sort of really disgusting.
Mm. That whole thing, I'm just like, stay away from me. Keep the showmance away.
Yeah, I think the worst
like,
part is that when Jay confronts Taylor about the showmance, Taylor says, I've thought it all the way through. That's how I'm going to play this game. Like, what kind of strategy is that? That's basically putting yourself in like as an obvious target. I mean, that's just
You're
stupid.
putting yourself as an obvious target, and then if Fiki gets voted out, how is he going to, like, transition? Like, is he suddenly going to be like, JK, I'm actually in love with insert name of female here?
Yeah.
binding yourself to someone else like that is not chill.
Yeah, I feel like Figgy and Taylor are sort of oblivious maybe to the fact that being in a power couple sort of, paints a target on their back. Figgy's like, my tribe doesn't even consider myself and Taylor to be a power couple threat. I'm like, girl, you are really annoying. People can see that you guys are getting close, but like, this also plays into the vote we see at Tribal Council. I mean, we can talk about that later, but Figgy and Taylor just being dumb sort of does save them because they don't seem like they're playing the game all that much.
I mean,
So,
that's really all there is to say about that. I mean, tell us what you think of showmances and this whole thing in the comments, but I'm kind of sick of talking about them. So we're going to move on.
yeah, so next we see like a cat fight between Figgy and Michaela, and there is so much drama around these people. Adam Klein has the basic laws of Survivor, which Corey can read.
Yeah, he said, don't come blazing out of the gate, don't get into a cat fight, and don't get into a showman's. And those are all pretty solid tips, and the Millennial Tribe does a horrible job of following them. I mean, the Michaela Figgy cat fight is ridiculous. The showman's thing, obviously, we talked about. And then in terms of, like, blazing out the gate, that I'd say is more the Gen X tribe with, like, Paul and them. But, I mean, still, like, the fact that that Triforce Alliance, that's almost a blazing out of the gate thing, even though they don't have the numbers.
I feel like the millennials are just bad at it because it's against their nature not to be impulsive. Like, people are always like, oh yeah, younger kids are so impulsive, they don't think through, and I feel like tips kind of come from not thinking things through. Because, like, if you sit down and think about it, it's really, really stupid to, like, a game show that millions of people apply to every year, building a relationship. Like, you can do that at home. That's what, like, eHarmony and shit is for.
Preach. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's Michaela's personality. Like, she says she's a straight shooter, but doing stuff like that, making unnecessary drama, causing, like, rifts in the tribe, doesn't, like, fare well or bode well for your placement in the game.
Especially because she, like, talks the talk but won't walk the walk. Like, she still doesn't end up voting Figgy out. And it's like, throw a hissy fit at her and, like, catfight with her. You should be able to back that up with your vote instead of just, nah.
Yeah, which is what makes this episode so interesting. We see so many different dynamics coming together, and, like, this is why we love this show. And, like, when we get to Tribal Council and discuss all of, like, the strategy and everything, Michaela's vote, Will's vote, Hannah's vote, so, like, good.
But, yeah, the cat fight was kind of another disaster, I guess.
Yeah, so much drama filled into this, like, 40-minute episode. I mean, I was going to cry.
So, we've already talked about all of the things about the episode that I hated. We're going to talk about the one thing that I loved, and that is the Ken and Dave. And I love them, and they are my OTP, and I love them.
Yeah, it's awesome to see those two brawling out because of how, like, different they seem. I mean, Ken is that, like, fit, hot guy, whereas David's just the socially awkward dude that couldn't even, like, break open, like, a coconut or anything or a stick. So the fact that they are tight is really incredible. And I'm definitely into seeing how that alliance works out over the course of this game because I am really rooting for them now.
No, yeah. After last episode and even during the pre-gaming season, I guess you can say, I was, like, not a huge fan of Ken. I thought he'd be the sort of really hot douchebag guy on the island. But after this episode, I am like, yo, Ken seems like a really chill guy. And then You know, he got a ton of close-ups while he was catching that octopus, and I feel like he is really relatable with the people when he's talking about, like, how he's been socially shy his life. You know, he was growing up with, like, speech impediments and nervous twitches, and I'm just like, you know, oh, babe, we underestimated you, and, like, he says he likes David because, you know, they're both shy, and when he sees David opening up, it inspires him to open up, and I'm just like, yo, this is like the stick bug thing from last episode. I was like, you know, why would they have a stupid stick bug scene? But now we see this is coming to fruition.
It's like the beginning of an arc. At least I hope it's the beginning and not like the end, because that would be sad.
Yeah, I know, and a lot of so then we see David being like, both of us are on opposite sides of the science spectrum, and Nick, Ken is like Adonis, and I was like, OMG, that is like Nick. Nick was related to Adonis by Debbie, and I'm just like, all my bays are back. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, I thought it was really interesting that like obviously is designed so that you can like keep a story arc within a season, obviously, but it's kind of cool that they're managing sort of into like there are callbacks to the season before it in every Survivor season as well, so that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we see Ken and David working together, and then they sort of call out Paul's posse, and they think, you know, everyone in Paul's group is like the in crowd, and we are like the not popular kids. And I was like, oh dang, you know, that was like the freaks and geeks thing from last episode also. But I really feel like, I don't know, Paul is like the figurehead leader of that group. I really feel like Chris or Brett are the ones actually leading that alliance.
Yeah, and I think the Ken David thing is also like a really interesting contrast to like the Figgy Taylor thing, because both of them are super tight duos. However, with like Figgy and Taylor, everybody knows they're tight, and they're kind of playing a dumb game. Whereas and they're also like the popular people, whereas Ken and David are these socially awkward, not popular people that people don't seem to know are really tight, and they're in a minority. So it's really interesting how opposite they are, but the fact that I think Ken and David have a much better chance with the strategy they have as that duo.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we see David showing Ken the idol, which at first I was like, you know, you guys didn't seem to know each other that long, but then, you know, Ken and David seem like really, really tight, and I feel like I don't think Ken will backstab David and tell other people he has the idol. I don't see it happening, because he's like, we're real legit brothers. I'm like, huh, how cute.
Like,
and yeah,
I think an idol is like not always the smartest choice, but I think that it was good for Ken and Dave.
Yeah, I think it'll help them. So now they know that they have leverage over the other people because they do have an idol, so they can use it to their advantage. And also, I think Corey was mentioning before how, like, the David-Ken alliance sort of is like a Fishback and JT, but then, so also like that, I feel like the David-Ken alliance looks like, because, you know, Ken's so hot and David's so not, like a Ty and like a Scott or Caleb kind of thing also.
Are you suggesting that my boy Ty isn't hot?
And then, you know, even so, David would be Fishback, Ken would be JT, and then Cece would be Taj. It's perfect.
Yeah, so I'm really interested to see how that'll play out. Kind of more interesting thing on the Gen X tribe that happened was the fact that Paul that was actually just heat exhaustion. Becoming a common Survivor ploy to like have medical be called in for something that's actually not all that serious, just so they can include a shot of medical and then next time on Survivor.
Yeah, I feel like with all of the strategy and amazing gameplay and the cute scenes of Ken and David happening, I feel like Paul's heat exhaustion, heart attack scene sort of falls to the back burner. Like, I didn't really care about I wanted to get back to the good stuff.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of just annoying just because, like, they didn't need to spend as much time on it as they did since he was fine. It just seemed stupid and pointless.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't think he would get medevac because CBS wouldn't say, like, oh, he's having a heart attack in the preview and then pull him from the game. When you could tell it was a male on the Gen X tribe, and you could process of elimination it down to who you think it would be the one to get looked at by medical medevac, whatever you want to say. And even, like, throughout the whole beginning of the episode with Ken and David talking, like, I am not a huge fan of Paul because he's just getting that annoying kind of edit where he keeps saying, you know, I breathe control, I want to be the leader, you know. I was like, good, Paul, get on the ground.
Yeah, he said, when it comes to being in control of the game, it's where I have to be. I mean, they are just giving him the edit of a guy that wants to be in charge and wants to feel like he has power, but is actually a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, Survivor is 100% scripted, you know. We see here with this, they scripted Paul having a heat exhaustion. But, I mean, I really think it's interesting because Survivor isn't scripted to see how playing the game does affect people in different ways, you know. Seeing, like, the cyclone and seeing people have to get checked out by a medical team, it really does shed light on how strenuous this game is. And, you know, Dr. Joe, he's like the most famous one on this island.
I think also it's interesting because you see that people can get, like, heat exhaustion so early into the game. Like, a night not on the island and you're still getting heat exhaustion by, like, day 5. Like, damn.
Oh, man. Yeah, so, I mean, even David is saying stuff like he doesn't want anything bad to happen to your teammates, but, like, when you're on the chopping block, when someone leaves, you know, that'll boost you up a few spots.
Yeah, because it's kind of bad for people, but then also every person that gets out is one step closer to $1 million. So it's like you have to balance your love for money with your love for that person.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know whether it's actually better for David if Paul gets pulled in that situation, because I think the easiest way to break up that majority alliance is for them to turn on Paul, since he seems to be the biggest, like, target in that alliance. So him getting pulled from the game, I think, would just make that majority of, it'd be 5 with him being pulled a lot tighter, and that would probably screw over the CC Ken David minority. So I don't know if it would actually be better for David.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, we'll see in time, and, like, it'll be interesting with this tribe swap next episode to see what really happens. Oh, man, so I guess moving on to the immunity challenge, this is a point in the episode when I was going to cry.
I was watching all my fantasy and power ranking dreams burn to the ground as Ken carried the Gen X tribe.
It was, like, literally the saddest thing ever because, like I said before, we all stacked our teams having, like, 1 through 10 as millennials and then 11 through 19 as Gen X because CBS said Gen X was going to tribal, so he's like, might as well, you know, get the upper hand and get some stuff. But then they done lied to us, and then when Gen X threw that final ring and got it, it was like, oh, holy crap, what just happened?
I think that I didn't like this challenge as much because I like it better when they, like, swing the machete at, like, plates and have to find the key in the water, because just being able to grab it is so anticlimactic.
Yeah, I was surprised that Gen X could, like, actually win because it's like, WTF, this is such a physical challenge that all these old Goonies versus all these young ones, how does that even work out?
And the thing is, Gen X had some really trash players in the challenge. I mean, Cece couldn't even get that, like, top ring. David was pretty bad in that first part of the challenge, grabbing the key or whatever. So, I mean, the fact that they won is pretty impressive with players that, quite frankly, sucked during the challenge.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that happened. But they said Lucy's name for the first time in this challenge.
Yo, I had that written in my notes.
We're happy that she
Lucy has got no airtime except for this episode when Jeff says Lucy's diving down to get the rings. And some conspiracy theories, some people are thinking that Lucy might quit the game, and that's why CBS isn't giving her a lot of edit or screen time.
Actually the winner of the game, and they're trying to fake us all out because they're sick of people being able to guess who won by the winner edits.
No, true. Actually, though, this episode mind effed the viewers.
Yeah, there's a lot of misdirect going on with the edits both episodes so far this season. So I think it's going to be a lot harder to predict vote outs and winner edit and that stuff this time around.
Yeah, and I mean going back to
that the viewers are getting smart enough to recognize their edits.
Yeah, which I think is good for CBS. Even though our fantasy points are all screwed up now, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed being blindsided myself, seeing all of this amazing gameplay, and I mean, yeah, it was an awesome episode. Very good.
So, obviously, we said Gen X won the immunity challenge, which meant that the Millennials were going to tribal, and there was a lot of, before they finally seemed to reach anything resembling a consensus. Take it away, Rachel.
Yeah, I feel like right after the immunity challenge, we see a confessional from Mari, which was so foreshadowing after rewatching the episode a few times. Basically, Mari's saying, voting someone out, you're crushing their dreams, And then, what do we see? Mari gets voted out and her dreams are crushed. I mean, only Tyson can say stuff like that. I don't know. And then you also see more foreshadowing when all the freaks and geeks people are like, I want to go to tribal to vote someone out. I want to, get this game started. But then it's also like, you never want to go to tribal because you could be the one on the chopping block. It's better to not have the game get started and just be safe until whenever, the merge or whatever.
I feel like it's interesting just because, Mari seemed like such a strong player, but then you realize that, factoring in people's emotions makes everything so much more complicated. Emotions suck.
Yeah, there goes a lot of people's winners picks, too. That was your winner pick, Alyssa.
Yeah, I know. When I saw she got voted out, I screamed, and then my hall was like, are you okay?
Same, though. Actually, I mean, we see Figgy saying, people are like, we don't want Figgy to know that she's going to be voted for. We want it to be a blindside. But being Figgy, being in a power couple, you have to be somewhat suspicious or, at least nervous, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the two MVPs this episode are Jay and Michelle.
Yeah, I think based on how the vote turned out at Tribal, it's obvious that the way this episode was edited did not at all match the social game being played on the Millennial Tribe. I mean, clearly you see, Hannah and Michelle must have been a lot tighter than they were made out to be if Hannah was able to, or Michelle convinced Hannah to change her vote, last minute. And then, obviously, Jay was really tight with Adam and Zeke if they were willing to, let him in on their whole plan, which ultimately screwed them over. So, I mean, they tried to paint the picture of there being a 6-4 split in the tribe, but it definitely seemed like everybody was playing with pretty much everybody else.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of indicative of the millennial style of being almost when you're young, everyone wants to know everyone, and even if you don't like everyone, you'll still put on a good face just to, like, try it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we can, for like Michaela, it was really interesting. She sort of bashes Figgy before Tribal, during Tribal, and then it's really interesting to see that even though she hates Figgy with such a burning passion, she realizes that keeping Figgy around is better for her game than keeping Mari around.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of, because that's the kind of thing where at the final Tribal, people are going to be like, so, you turned on your alliance, literally, like, the first Tribal Council you went to about that. And I feel like that doesn't say good things about her loyalty.
For Michaela?
Yes.
I mean, the fact that most of that majority alliance turned, I think negates anything that could make that look bad for the most part. I mean, if anything, it's just that Adam and Zeke are now screwed with everybody else theoretically chilling. But I'm going to guess that it's going to be a bit more complicated with that, especially if they're going to do the tribe mix-up next week.
Yeah, I feel like this is sort of a voting block. I don't see 7 people staying together very long, but they just used each other to get what they wanted this episode, and then next time or whenever we see that like these people are working together, I feel like it'll have more fractures and more splits.
Yeah, I think it's kind of dangerous because each of the Millennials is playing kind of the me game. And at some point, if you're going to be in an alliance that is successful, you need to start thinking about the us just as much as the me. It's great if you personally do well, but if you screw everyone over, no one's going to want to vote for you.
Yeah. So kudos to Jay and Michelle. I think we didn't really see this on the edit, but Jay must have been close to Zeke and Adam, like close enough to be able to hear the info about the plan. But at first, he's all like, oh no, they want to vote Figgy out. Like, I'm close with Figgy and now she's going to go home. And Jay gets to hear all this info. And then, do you think it's sort of bad for Zeke and Adam to be sharing, like, their entire plan? Or I feel like they must have been close enough with Jay that they felt comfortable with sharing it, which ended up in their like downfall this episode.
I feel like the thing is people it seemed pretty obvious to me that Jay was close with Taylor and Michelle, or Taylor and Figgy. So I feel like there must have been something where like Adam and Zeke thought that they had made it think it was for the better if he, like, broke away from them, just because, like, the whole power couple thing, if you're the third wheel in a power couple, that ain't gonna go well for you. So I feel like it's just maybe misreading how well they persuaded him to be on their side, not that they didn't know that he was with them in the first place.
Yeah, I'm guessing that when, like, Jay confronted Taylor about the whole showman thing, that's about the time that Adam and Zeke probably got really tight. Because he seemed probably ready to flip on them, realizing that those two were just not being smart about how they were going about that. So I'm guessing he just worked his way into that and then tried to, pull off that last-minute blindside successfully. So
Yeah, I feel like Jay sort of was a good actor, whether he was acting or that was his true feelings at the time, saying, Taylor and Figgy are so dumb, you can't get into a showman. And even he was bashing Taylor and Figgy to the other tribe mates, which could have made them feel like, oh, Jay's with us because he's on our same wavelength. He's thinking that Taylor and Figgy are being dumb and like they need to go also. So, Jay's got that social game. He's a cool dude, seeming like. I didn't like Jay at first, but now, same as Ken, I'm starting to like Jay a lot. And so, I mean, Jay then goes and talks to Michelle, giving her the info that he got from, like Zeke saying how they want to get rid of Figgy next. But then Michelle goes the A1 strategy. She's like, we need to save Figgy for the numbers. And she basically persuades Jay that they should try to get the numbers to save Figgy and they should take out Mari.
Yep, and then that's what ends up happening. Mari ends up going home, much to my sadness. She ruined everything.
Yeah, I mean, Michelle did a great job, like, convincing Jada, like, that her plan could work, and that then going to Will and having him flip. And then there was that whole awkward thing where he compared, like, the way Mari was playing to, like, how Parvati and, like, Cochran had played,
Figgy.
or how Figgy was playing, I mean, to how, like, Parvati and Cochran had played their games, which is a really weird comparison to me because there's almost no similarities in my mind to how Parvati and Cochran played, other than they're both pretty manipulative people. But it was so different that I don't see how you can throw out that comparison and then add it to, like, Figgy. I mean, none of that made any sense in my opinion.
Yeah, I was like, Figgy doesn't really seem, no offense, smart enough to be like a Cochran or a Parvati, but I definitely feel like Michelle could have those vibes. You know, she's being low-key, she's pretty, she's talking with everyone, and she definitely has these relationships built up, like with Hannah. She's able to read people. She goes to Will and, like, she goes and uses logic. You know, it's easier to take out Figgy later. It's an easy vote. Like, we should get out Mari now because Mari's smart. She's a professional game player. And if you watch seasons, they might compare Mari to, like, Ken from Gabon and be, like, professional gamers. They've got to be, like, smart, manipulative. And then, you know, good for Michelle, realizing that keeping Figgy, because she's close with Figgy, is better for her and Jay, and then telling Jay, like, this plan, and, like, when Jay was ready to go with Zeke and Adam. And, like, Michelle was like, we need Figgy and Michaela to make up, and then Jay goes and talks with Figgy and Michaela and is able to tell Figgy and Michaela what Zeke said about Figgy, you're first to go, Michaela, you're second to go, and he really, you know, was able to get those votes. So both of them, like a duo. I feel like the Jay and Michelle sort of duo will be super good. I'm interested to see how this plays out, and I feel like Jay and Michelle can sort of be shielded by Figgy and Taylor as, like, these are the two that are actually running it because they're the power couple, and then, but actually Michelle and Jay are the power couple.
I feel like part of it is back to the Figgy and Parvati thing. When Parvati was in her showmance with James, it was like she made it very obvious from all of her confessionals and, like, everything she said to everyone else, her showmance was purely for strategy reasons, and that it was, like, literally her manipulating him. If he has any intentions of manipulating Taylor, so...
Yeah, I think the Figgy Taylor is more lovey-dovey than I'm going to flirt with you to manipulate you.
Yeah.
Yee. So, I mean,
Yeah.
right before Tribal Council, we see Michelle getting one last confessional. She's basically saying, you know, I may need to pull some strings at Tribal to make sure that I have the numbers and get what I want.
And, yeah, like we've said several times, Michelle comes out on top. Mari goes home. Sad face.
Like, Jeff is a freaking god at his job. So when he sees this sort of second conversation happening between Michelle and Hannah, he lets it play out. He lets them talk, but then he also is, like, going to ask Michelle, Hannah, Jay questions during it to see if they can, like, cover themselves while they have this side conversation and answer, like, his questions and be able to, like, I don't know, just, like, deflect.
I think it's kind of interesting because in order to do that, you kind of have to be running two parallel stories in your head. Like, what's actually going on and what I'm going to say is going on so people don't get suspicious.
Yeah, and I think Michelle and Jay both did a great job with that. However, Hannah was pretty bad, I think, at covering that up. I mean, the way she responded to Jeff, like just answering a question that he didn't even ask, was just showed so many nerves. And even though you're nervous at tribal council, that should have been a major red flag to Mari and everyone else really on the tribe that something was up. Because, I mean, she was freaked out.
Yeah, Hannah is like that voice inflection when you're like, ah, ha, 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 ha. Like, oh, Jeff, like that kind of thing. It was like, such a turn off. And then, I mean, that's sort of at the end when, you know, there's so much at Tribal. But I mean, so I guess we'll start from the beginning. So Michaela basically is bashing Figgy right at Tribal, and then that sort of turns Michelle into thinking, you know, maybe we don't have the numbers. Maybe I'm not sure exactly if Michaela and Will vote for us. So in order to cover their ass, she's like, I need to get another number. And Hannah's right there. And apparently she's got some good ass connections with Hannah. But it's like interesting. I don't know. Like if Michaela was acting at Tribal Council being like, oh, I hate Figgy just to make Mari feel more comfortable. Or if, you know, she actually wanted to diss Figgy in the public setting.
I mean, you can hate someone and then still vote for someone else to get off just because now Michaela can say, I hated you and I still voted for you, so now what you're going to do for me.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting seeing these like players push past their personal differences and like vote along like these voting blocks or tribal lines or whatever you want to call them, because I really don't feel like we see that like anywhere else. People are like, I hate you, I want you off. I'm not going to work with you.
Yeah, I think the Millennial tribe is definitely putting like strategy above all else. Like they're definitely choosing to keep a more annoying person than somebody who's actually a threat, which is definitely the opposite of what like Gen X kind of did last week voting out Rachel. So I think that they're playing a higher level of strategy, and it's really interesting because I think for the most part that tribe consists of like pretty hardcore fans of the show who grew up with it, and they're definitely taking everything they've learned from watching it over the years and trying to put it into the show and just trying to play extremely competitive games.
Like what that like this
I
is
think that's going to end up is when they do like tribe switch, or when they're going to end up, I think, screwing them over, just because if there's one person who plays too hard, that ends up putting a target on their back. And like of Millennials, no one person is really playing too hard because they're all playing really hard. But I think that the Gen Xers will definitely notice.
Yeah, when Michelle tells Hannah, like, I'm voting for Mari, then Hannah, like, talks with Jay, like, do you know what Michelle is talking about? And then Hannah's like, you know, I need a reason. Then Michelle is like, I will tell you later. And then she doesn't give a reason now, which definitely shows how much of a bond, I guess, Michelle and Hannah have, that Hannah was willing to trust Michelle on a whim at frickin' Tribal Council to vote for a completely different person without any reason.
Yeah, because if she had ended up voting for Mari and had been Figgy that had gone home, her gameplay would have really been destroyed off of that flip. So, I mean, the fact that she trusted Michelle enough to risk everything on that vote is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we see that.
Like, there are people who say, like, we have to make a move. A big move is as long as there's a move made. So it could just be that she was like, well, might as well try to be a part of making a big move.
But, I mean, this is so much earlier to make a big move like that than seasons typically are. I mean, at this point, it's
but you just said they're all super fans, so sometimes that takes them far into it, I think, where, like, to, like, give the viewers a good show and to prove themselves as, like, strategy giants or whatever. Like, want anything to be done. Like, you kind of saw that in Second Chances. Wanted to make a huge move, even though it's probably too early in the game to make a big move.
I don't know if this is too early. I feel like it's good strategy, you know, since so many people thought Mari could have won the game. They saw, and she was so many people's winner picks, the people on the cast saw that, you know, if we give Mari some, she's going to take it all and be able to win the game. But I mean, with Mari's edit, I feel like all of her confessionals were just about video games. She made all of these video game analogies, like 2D worlds, like actually talking with people now. And I mean, Jeff, when Hannah, Jay, and Michelle are talking, he's like, did I miss an entire conversation? And then nobody's ears perked up and were like, what the heck is happening? But only when Jeff sees that they're still talking later, then you see Adam and Zeke, like, you know, having that scared face, like, what is going on? And then I think Mari sort of shoots herself in the foot here, saying, you know, oh, you know, it's just Hannah. She's probably talking about butts or puppies. And maybe that could have been the turning point for Hannah to vote for Mari, because Mari just low-key offended her.
I mean, he's really condescending, so.
Yeah, I think she majorly underestimated Hannah right there. And so, I mean, that, even though Hannah's vote didn't end up mattering, like, that is probably representative of a lot of her gameplay. So I think she kind of ended up screwing herself over through a lot of, like, the social interaction stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people were comparing this, like, Hannah vote out to Aubrey when she switched her vote from Julia to Scott, which is interesting. It's an interesting analogy. But I feel like Hannah switching, I don't know, Hannah just taking so long voting at Tribal Council, it's not good. She definitely brings more attention to herself than she needed to. And, like, PG, I think, and Rob has a podcast, she says that Hannah took 10 minutes in, like, the voting booth at Tribal. Just, like, everyone noticed Jeff has to go and check on you. Like, that is not the kind of publicity you want at first Tribal.
Yeah, because the thing is now, even though she voted correctly, it just makes her look like probably the least trustworthy of that new kind of majority alliance. I mean, it took her way too long to come to a decision.
Really indecisive. Like, the
Yeah.
thing is, Survivor is done, and if you voted the wrong way, you're just going to have to accept that and try to learn from it. Like, agonizing about it isn't going to make it any better.
Yeah, like, Hannah, I guess we'll see next episode, but Hannah seems like she breaks her trust with Adam and Zeke now because she flips right at Tribal. Floppy, she might seem like she's floppy and, like, indecisive, but I mean, overall, good for Jay and Michelle. Like, this strategy and gameplay is just at Tribal, something you don't see before Tribal is not something you see in an everyday episode, which made this episode just so good.
So, next time on Survivor.
Yeah, so next time I am feeling it's going to be a tribe swap. 666 into 3 tribes, except with a sort of twist. So it'll be 6 Gen X, 6 Millennials. Then the third tribe of 6 will be 3 Gen X and 3 Millennials.
Yeah, based on the fact that in, like, the preview thing, Will said he wanted to be a part of it, that, in my opinion, would imply that it's only one tribe that's going to get changed up, like, too much.
Yeah, Alyssa, what do you think?
I mean, I agree with what you said.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think a tribe swap, if this happens, will be good for, like, Adam and Zeke. Maybe Hannah if she's moved on to the new tribe, but definitely if I feel like Adam and Zeke need to be taken out of the Millennial tribe in order to keep thriving.
yeah. So, who do you think is going to be voted out?
Man, I haven't thought this through. I gotta, like, talk it out. I think the tribe swap will also be good for David, Cece, and Ken if they get moved. But then it's like all my favorites are in one tribe. I don't want any of them to get voted out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, with that
Well,
tribe...
that assumes that they all get moved. Like, they're notorious for screwing people over.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that changes everything, because that's going to essentially determine who goes home probably the next few episodes. Because that'll change up the gameplay so much.
Yeah, if you're safe now, like in a smaller tribe of 6, or if you're 3-3, that changes so many things, everything. If you were safe, you might not be safe anymore, which is so good. I cannot wait.
Hey, who you think is getting voted out?
Man, I can't do it now. I need to write out all of my flow charts to figure this out. Corey, if you have one, you can go.
Oh, I really don't. I mean, it's so difficult with that swap. Like.
Okay, so neither of you you both suck.
Who do you think?
I'm okay with sucking.
I think that Taylor and Figgy are going to get split up, and then without each other, someone's going to take the chance to snipe one of them, and I'm going to say that it's going to end up being Figgy, because at least Taylor has a little bit of muscle.
Oh, that's a smart thing.
Yeah, I'm smart sometimes.
Yeah, I got to think about this through. I need to, just meditate and just...
You don't have time for meditation. You have 10 seconds or you don't get a vote.
No, man, I'll think about it tonight. Okay. So
this week, updating our Pussy Point spreadsheet due to a little miscommunication. So next week we'll have prophecy points for both this past week and next week's episode. So sorry if you were super who was winning. It's probably not me.
yeah, so I mean, thank you all so much for watching. This was sort of a longer podcast because we've got Corey guest starring.
Pleasure to be here, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to shout out, Adam?
I'll give a shout out to Adam Klein. It was a pleasure having lunch with you. I hope we can do it again someday.
Yeah, I mean, this is a longer episode. I felt like this was a really good Survivor episode. I was thoroughly enjoyed by it.
You were thoroughly enjoyed by it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get a lot of sleep. I need to do homework.
Grammar. You guys, next week, we're hopefully going to go back to our normal Friday night times. There was just some extenuating the fire near Rachel's dorm or something. Next week, we will be podcasting on Friday again as fires.
Yeah, instead of technical difficulties, we've got flames, and it's crazy. But I mean,
we'll see you guys then.
Bye.